All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, it took 162 games, but now we're down to just 12 teams that still have an opportunity to call themselves World Series champions for the year 2022. 12 teams are entering the postseason and the expanded postseason, six teams for both the American National Leagues, as obviously somebody's looking to take home that title in about a month or so. Of these 12 teams, 11 are going to see their season end on a loss, but who's going to advance? But before we get that far, who from the American League in the wild card round is going to be able to survive in order to get to the divisional series. Now, of course, the postseason starts tomorrow. All four wild card games or wild card series, for that matter, will be on tomorrow. And I want to start with the AL with the six-seeded Tampa Bay Rays out of the American League East clashing with the third-seeded Cleveland Guardians out of the American League Central. Now, for Tampa Bay, this is their fourth consecutive trip to the postseason, but they're limping in. We saw Tampa Bay win 100 games last year. Of course, they got to the World Series in 2020, but they're limping into the playoffs right now, losers of their last five games. And they're going to take on a very good Guardians team that, they finally were able to get some semblance of order in that American League Central. We saw a lot of up and down play for the majority of the year between Minnesota, the White Sox, and of course Cleveland. But then Cleveland was able to seize control coming down the stretch, and now they are champions of that division. Now, one thing you're going to see some good pitching throughout this series because Tampa Bay was third in the American League this year in team ERA, while Cleveland was fourth. You also have two managers who are very experienced in the postseason, Kevin Cash for the Rays, and then of course Terry Francona for the Guardians. For me, I think one of the keys for Tampa Bay, they've got to get Randy Arozarena and Yandy Diaz going. I mean, if they can get going, there are obviously going to be problems for this Cleveland pitching staff, but they have to try to find a way to like just infuse some life and energy into this Tampa Bay offense. And if they can get going, they can put some pressure on those Cleveland pitchers. But for me, I just look at the pitching throughout this series. I mean, you look at game number one tomorrow. It's going to be Shane McClanahan going up against Mr. Shane Bieber. And I think this has the opportunity to be a very good pitching matchup here in game number one of this series. You look at game number two in Tampa Bay, they're going to rely on Tyler Glass now. Cleveland is not named a starter yet, but they are holding Cal Quantrill, for game number three, which makes me believe that more than likely it's going to be Tristan McKenzie who gets the ball in game number two. Now, obviously, this wild card round is a lot different because, yes, it's a three-game series, best of three, but it's all at the higher seeds home field. So this entire series is going to take place in Cleveland. There is some previous postseason history between these two clubs. Once upon a time in the wild card game, it was the Tampa Bay Rays, of course, a long time ago. And I say that because obviously the rosters are a lot different between now and then. But it was David Price who pitched a complete game for the Rays in that one. But nonetheless, you are still going to see some quality pitching in this series. Now, for Cleveland, this is a team that can really piece it together with their lineup and get going. And I'm talking about with the likes of Andres Jimenez, Ahmed Rosario, and Jose Ramirez. This is a young Cleveland team. And, obviously a smaller market club, two small market teams here for that matter. And it's all about being able to develop your young guys to get them to get up to the major league level. And that's what we've seen with Cleveland. That's what we've seen with Tampa Bay. And I think that's going to be on display throughout this series. But you ask me who has the edge, I'm going to go with Cleveland. And I think that the Guardians will take care of their business in order to advance to round number two. Now, the other series in the American League wildcard round, I really feel Like, this is the most evenly matched series of all of the wild card series, with the fifth seed Seattle Mariners out of the American League West taking on the four seed Toronto Blue Jays out of the American League East. And for Seattle, yeah, they're not going to have a home game in this series, but the drought is over because they had the longest postseason drought in North American sports, going back to 2001. That was the last time that the Mariners had made the postseason, and obviously that is over right now. For this Mariners team, Julio Rodriguez has been a ray of sunshine into this lineup. We've seen what this youngster has done this season, and he has the ability to put a lineup on his back. And to me, Julio Rodriguez is a kind of kid that is made for the postseason stage. So let's see what he's going to be able to do in this weekend series. Also, keep an eye out for Eugenio Suarez, and it's important that the likes of Rodriguez and Suarez get something going for this Seattle lineup, because this year the Mariners, they were 14th in the American League in batting average, while they were seventh in on base percentage. But one thing that makes up for it, the Mariners can pitch, and they're going to be throwing some arms out here in this series against the Toronto Blue Jays. I like the matchup for game number one. You got Luis Castillo, and of course, Seattle acquired him mid-year from the Cincinnati Reds, and he's going up against Alek Manoah, and that's going to be a very good matchup tomorrow afternoon in the game one of the series. You go to game number two, and it's Robbie Ray taking the bump for Seattle. And should this series go to game three, it's going to be Logan Gilbert. But for me, I want to talk about Robbie Ray for a minute, because yes, he was with the Blue Jays last year, and he got paid in free agency by Seattle. So you're possibly having a scenario here where Robbie Ray could pitch Seattle to the ALDS on Saturday, or if Seattle comes into this game down 1-0, he could, possibly, be unable to get it done against his former teammates. It's a very interesting scenario right there. But on the flip side, for the young Jays, are they ready for the postseason? We saw Tampa Bay get to the playoffs 2 years ago in the expanded playoff format. They lost to Tampa Bay. They finished just short last year of making the postseason, but this year they're back. You look at this Jays team; they have a lot of talent, but my main thing is, will they be able to seize the moment? Will there be enough maturity there? We've seen some lackluster play from Toronto at times this season. They know how to turn it on, but the thing is, you can't be lackluster at this point of the year. You've got to bring it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts if you're the Jays. And I mean, their talent is there. I'm talking about Vlad Jr. He finished second in the MVP voting last year. You got Bo Bichette, Matt Chapman, the former Oakland Athletic, George Springer, the big free agent signing from a few years ago from the Houston Astros. You also have Teoscar Hernandez, who is another player to keep an eye on in this series for the Jays. I talked about Alek Manoah getting the ball for game number one for Toronto. They haven't named a starter for game two or possibly game three. It'd be interesting to see if Jose Barrios is in the rotation. I expect Kevin Gausman to get the ball in one of those contests. It's going to be interesting to see how the Jays play this. You got Scott Service going up against John Schneider in regards to the managers. Make no mistake about it. One thing we know for sure, and that is that the Rogers Center come tomorrow will definitely be rocking. Who has the edge in this series? I'm going to give the edge to Toronto, being that they have home field advantage. But I really think that this Seattle team, they're not going to be flustered by that. When it's all said and done, like I said, to me, this is the most even series out of all four of the wild card round series. It's a toss up, but I am going to give the slight edge to Seattle to get it done and advance to the divisional round. So when it's all said and done, I'm picking Cleveland and Seattle to win the American League Wild Card Series and get to the American League Divisional Series. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out, drop a line, and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.